Well, it turns out I don't have Karen's number.
I'll send her an email really quick.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you.
Thanks. And
All
we
righty.
are streaming.
We are streaming. We are recording. This is the public session of the Old Farm District Neighborhood Association monthly board meeting. My name is James DeRofi. I am the board chair. We're going to do a quick roundtable of our other board members. We do have a quorum, and we are also joined monthly when available by our city councilor representative, who is Councilor Keebler. So if the board can introduce themselves quickly.
I am Dave Johnson, and I am the vice chair.
And I'll go next.
Jen.
This is sorry, Jen. This
No,
is
go, Ross, go.
I'm a NLA, a member of the NLA as well.
And in this session, he is the talking barn. Brian or Jen?
I'm Jen, Community Outreach and liaison to NART, which is Neighborhood Association Roundtable.
You're muted, Brian.
I think you'd figure that out by now, huh? Brian Kennedy, did the Bend beautification program and other odd jobs.
And at some point, we will be joined by Karen Johnson, who is our land use chair, as soon as she figures out her technical difficulties. For those of you who are not familiar with the format of online meetings, and I hope we all are, you can either raise your hand at the bottom or literally just physically raise your hand. We do ask if you can hold questions till the end of the presentations, unless the presenter allows otherwise. We encourage everybody to encourage into conversation, and please be civil with each other. Everybody here is volunteers. Even our city councilors don't get paid enough money to really call it a job. So that being said, oh, Karen, say hello really quickly. Karen, say hi.
Hi, I'm on.
All right. She is our land use chair, and just so people know, she is running for city council as well. And that is not an endorsement. It is just me pointing out the facts of reality. So, but I'm not non-endorsing her. So, normally we have a neighborhood leader association update. The NLA is just getting up and started with a whole, basically a half new board. Ross, if you wouldn't give a complete update, but just explain what the Neighborhood Leadership Alliance is to the crowd so they all know.
Sure. The Neighborhood Leadership Alliance is a committee formed to help be a conduit between the Bend City Council and our neighborhoods. The main thing that we met about last month, we meet again tomorrow, but last month we discussed STRs quite a bit, as well as James mentioned, just getting the whole new team up to speed. I'm also a new member, been around just for a few months as a part of the NLA rep, I should say, for Old Farm District. I think that's about it.
And the NLA is an official citizens committee for the city of Bend. So they have city staff and assistants and things like that. The neighborhood associations, there are 13 of them in the city limits. We represent an area sort of on the southeast side of town, south of Reed Market Road. That being said, due to COVID and everything, we feel we are finally making progress in talking to people and getting out into the world again. So our board came to a decision last month. We are going to do a hard reset in March of next year. And we are going to have a general meeting to be determined a location, and all of the positions on our board will be up for re-election, so we can get back to the way our bylaws were working before the world went into an emergency state. For the next few months, we are going to be continually advertising our general meeting and the fact that all the board's positions are going to be open. You just have to basically live or work in the Old Farm District to be on the board, and you will see information about this on our social media and our monthly newsletters. So that is just sort of a heads up looking forward. We know it's an election season and things like that. We did not want to try to put together a whole new board and then have the city council, who knows, maybe just make it all go away in January, which isn't going to happen, but you just never know these days. That being said, we do like to allow our city council or representatives 5 or 10 minutes to give us an update of what's going on in the city, and then have open for questions. And we have Councilor Keebler.
Thanks. So I think the biggest thing we've been working on and we're continuing to work on is the camping code, and we are almost to the end of that process. We had, at the end of September, we had a couple of roundtables, which was a new meeting format that we put into our rules this year. So that allowed us to have first a roundtable with our advisory committee representatives, and then a separate meeting, another special meeting with our fellow government agencies, with service providers, with business organizations, and just everybody sort of coming up to the table to have more of a dialogue. And we didn't vote on anything. It was just to have dialogue and information sharing at those meetings, which was really helpful. And then we had a work session last week to sort of take all that input in and see what we wanted to do with the draft code that we have. And I think we're going to end up having a special meeting just to talk about the time component of the code. This code can regulate the time, the place, and the manner of camping within Bend. We can't prohibit camping in all of Bend without having enough resources for everyone to go to shelter. We don't have that right now, and that also is required to be an individual assessment. So does this person right here in front of me have a shelter available? Not just generally are there beds in a shelter in Bend. So it's a complicated sort of legal framework, but we're almost to the end of it. All these meetings have been public. I'll link the page as well for people who want to go and look and kind of catch up on things, continuing to take input by email or however else if you have thoughts, and just keep watching those meetings if you're interested in this. Continue to have public comment, and there'll be a public hearing on the final draft of code, so there'll be other opportunities to give input as well. But that's been the biggest thing we're working on lately. We do have an important meeting next week, which is our quarterly update, which is going to have a ton of information about where we're at with our goals, what's coming up next. It's going to have information about climate friendly rules, a lot of stuff we're checking in on to see where we're at and what we're going to be doing next. And all that good stuff. And then just today, I'll update that we had the septic to sewer committee meeting and picked out 4 different projects. 2 of them over in kind of more of the Peril area, over by Ray Road and where Murphy and Peril are, and then 2 of them about near off of Pettigrew. So those are the next in line that are going to be entering the design process and then be constructed in the next few years. So that is good as well. So that's it for me, James.
Well, geez, I'm still not going to be able to get my sewer yet. Thank you, Melanie. That being said, do you have any updates on the short-term rental?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah. So we had also that came to us at our last meeting last week, and we had the final public hearing on that. That process actually started back at the beginning, like in March of this year, when we had a couple of work sessions and then directed staff to make some changes. The biggest one is increasing the buffer from 250 feet to 500 feet between short-term rentals. And then also creating a program where someone can rent long-term, can try out doing a 12-month or more lease, but still hold on to that license and it won't be canceled on them, as a way to try to incentivize some people to maybe start doing long-term renting, or at least trying it and see if that's something that could work for them instead of just doing short-term renting. So that the council unanimously approved those changes. They had already gone through the planning commission with a couple of tweaks, and then came to us. We had the public hearing and everybody voted to do the first reading of that. So we'll see that one more time on our agenda for a second reading, but those are done as of this point.
Does anyone have any questions for Councilor Keebler regarding short-term rentals or the camping code? Brian?
Wasn't really regarding either of those topics, but I did
Okay.
want to
That's fine.
follow up. Last month, we had discussed briefly whom the city contact to liaise with the state on local speed limits might be. And you were going to poke around to see if you could figure out who that person or entity
Yeah,
might
I don't
be.
think, I think Janet replied to me because there was also the question of like, if we want to put some speed concerns in, where do we do that? And I don't think Janet gave me that name, but yes, we have, they are working, they have to go and make a request for change to ODOT. So Brian, are you asking for who is that ODOT person or what's? the
Well,
information?
my particular issue is Ferguson, which
Right.
is grossly too fast. So I don't know if that's already with all the developments in this area, whether that's on the radar for being revised like 15th was, or if it's not on the agenda yet, but I want to make sure it gets on the agenda because the speed limit there is way too high.
Yeah, Janet said they are looking at Ferguson. So I think it is on the agenda is the answer to
Okay.
that question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
And for the audience, as this conversation continues throughout the evening, I encourage anybody to post links to any of the topics in the chat section at the end of the meeting while we're still live. You can save the chat section to have all the links, whether it's from the school district or from the city of Bend or from us. If anyone does not have any other questions for Melanie, this is the time to ask. Otherwise, we get to go right into the fun part. No questions. So that's the case. Tonight, we are going to be hearing from the Bend Lapine School District. They have a bond measure that they want to tell us about. And just on a personal note, they have not been doing that great of a job advertising it. It has been kept in kept quietly. So please ask questions and let's have some fun with this presentation. But be polite, all politeness. So Stephen, are you going to be the main presenter tonight? Do you need to share a screen or anything?
Yes, if we could make that happen, James, and I could share my screen, that would actually be super helpful.
Yes, and unfortunately, I just got a personal message from Ross, who is our person who's hosting this meeting, and he had an emergency at the house for 5 minutes. Can you hold off for 5 minutes, or just let me see if I can text him. I did not plan to co-host. Let me see if I can. I do apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Talking about bad timing. I am texting him now. Very rarely does he have emergencies in the middle of a meeting. So all I can imagine is something happened with an animal.
Do you want to just introduce yourself, Steve and Melissa, and like just give an introduction of who you are?
Yeah, glad to, Jen. Thanks for that. And I can do this without the slides if we need to, if you want us to get going on it, and we can do that. But I'm Steve Cook. I'm the superintendent of Bend Lapine Schools, starting my second year here. Really, really grateful for the opportunity and honor to have some time with you all today to talk a little more about what's coming your direction, coming the community's direction, and glad to share that with you.
I'm Melissa Barnes-Dalaki. I'm the chair for the Bend Lapine Schools, and I am also chairing the PAC that is supporting the school bond, Central Oregonians for Responsible Education. And thank you so much for making time for us tonight.
Stephen, I just have to ask, by chance, does your screen at the bottom have the green?
James, your audio is trash. It's got, yeah, it ain't coming through. No. Struggle bus.
James, nod if you want me to just go ahead and start without the slides.
We are having our share of technical problems tonight.
Yeah, I just checked and I don't have permissions to share my screen yet.
I do, but I don't have your presentation, but it showed up on mine.
The presentation to her.
It's too big. Yeah.
Okay.
How
let's start.
how about we just go ahead and start? And
Yep.
I'll just couch this with, imagine as I speak really cool and inspirational pictures of our students in our schools. And that'll help give you the idea of kind of what we're talking about as I go through this. And so our kids are adorable and we have great pictures, and that's just what I want you to picture. All right. So I can do this pretty quick, but I want to make sure what you hear and understand from me is kind of the background and why we're in front of the voters and why we're asking this. And so, like I said, I'm Steve Cook. I'm a 34-year public educator. I'm passionately driven, thinking about the world of public education. I've been doing this my entire professional career, and it is why we're here tonight. We want to talk to you about a little about who we are, what we're proud of, what we're working on right now, and then giving you some connections to the work and to recognize how and why we're asking voters what we're asking. So first of all, who are we? We have 33 schools, and we authorize 2 charter schools in the district. Desert Montessori and Bend International School are our charter schools that we authorize as well. We cover 1,600 square miles in La Pine, Sun River, and Bend proper, and we have approximately a $211 million operating budget. That makes us the second largest employer in Central Oregon, with about 2,100 folks that we employ across the district. A little over 1,000 of those are certified staff, which includes teachers, counselors, and building administrators. And the other 1,000 or 1,100 are classified staff that do anything from drive buses for us, nutrition services, work in our maintenance department, or work directly with students and supporting them. Our teachers have an average experience of about 15 years each, and about 75% of them have master's degrees. We have amazing staff, and I'll just tell you that right off the bat. Of those 2,100 people that work with our kids, both directly and indirectly, they are the reason that Ben Lapine is successful. Our staff is who we recognize and who we give credit to for the fantastic work that is going on. We have national award winners. Our most recent one was the James the James Madison Award, given to Jessica Colburn, one of our teachers in La Pine High School, one of 54 across the nation to win that award for her work with the U.S. Constitution this past year. Okay, so who are our students then? We serve about 17,500 students across our 33 schools and 2 charter schools. 81% of those students report themselves to be Caucasian. The remaining students, 13% of those are Hispanic, 4% report themselves to be multiracial, 1% Asian, and 1% Black African American students. Approximately 8% of our students are English language learners in some form of that, which is a tough label because they can be quite proficient in the English language, and but that is how the state and the feds capture that data, and so that's how we qualify that. Roughly 25 languages are spoken in our district, and we have a lot of supports to help meet the needs of the students that are bringing them their best selves in their home language. And 11% of our students are reportedly qualify for special education, was right about the national average as that goes. So what are we proud of right now? There's a lot of things we're proud of, but I'll share just a few of those with you. Our graduation rates have steadily increased over the last decade, from about the low 70% range to the 82% range for the 4-year graduation rate, which is a mathematical formula that starts the day you walk in as a freshman to the day that you would be expected to graduate. Any student that continues on after that or would take an extra class to need to graduate gets looped into our completer rates, which when you talk about completer rates, it also talks about those students that are in special needs that would not ever graduate from high school because they're in a specialized programming, but they get certifications of completion. After that 5th year, those students, including all those students, were up in the mid 90s. So you see that we're still very successful with our graduations. We're also very proud of the fact that 338 of last year's graduates, of a total of about 1,300, earned their honors diploma. And that is a great representation of how our students can academically achieve. 29 students earned their seal of biliteracy, and 28 students received their IB, International Baccalaureate Diploma, which I'm glad to answer questions about that if you would like more information. Last year, 1,400 of our high school students took at least one AP course, advanced placement course. 430 of our high school students took IB, International Baccalaureate courses, like I just mentioned. We have currently 60 classes offered at our 7 high schools that students can take for college credit. And those students, some of those students are actually getting their 1st and 2nd years of college done while they're still in our high schools. In fact, on a rare occasion, you can have students that will graduate with their associate's degree before they ever graduate from high school. James, I just noticed you're the host now. Do you want to share, or do you want me to keep going?
That's what I'm trying to type with Ross, get you to that possibility. So give us about 15 seconds. Or Ross, if you're on, give him screen share capability. Did that work? Do you have share screen capability at the bottom?
Yeah, I
Alrighty.
still don't have screen share rights yet.
It says you do. So let me. Or Ross, if you're listening, give Dr. Cook screen share.
All right, how about I keep going? I think I can
Keep going as soon as you
power
see
and
the green
through.
button.
You got it. Another thing we're really proud of is the number of students that can have access to what we call career ready programs. The term that we use in the schools are career technical education, which some of you may be familiar with, which are programs that educational programs that end up in some form of industry licensure, that when students go through these courses and pass them and matriculate on, they can take an exam and receive essentially a stamp of approval in some form of industry, such as automotive or business, manufacturing, culinary services, communications, engineering. We have over 30 of those programs going on right now in our high schools. And these programs give access to students and jumpstart them for high wage, high demand jobs. And our students have every opportunity to compete for some of those jobs that may start out at $40,000 a year. They can move into like forestry positions and actually jump onto the front lines in fighting forest fires for the state. And those programs start in our high schools, and students can get access to those. And right now, the latest data we have is that 60% of our students are taking at least one of those courses in our high schools before they graduate. The next thing that we're super proud of is the fact that our students have access to a very well-rounded educational experience. They're getting access to visual arts, lots of world language courses, PE, lots of technology courses. And this extends even down into elementary schools, where we are really promoting the idea of physical education and fine arts are something that every kid should have an opportunity to experience in some fashion. It's kind of switching more from the academic lens, but still thinking about how we are a contributing member of the community. The school district prides itself, pause. I am the host now. Let's see if I can screen share. I still can't screen share. Why won't this let me screen share? I'll tell you why, because I am not on the district server right now, and we've got my laptop locked down so tight that I can't, they won't allow me to screen share over my own Wi-Fi here at home. So that's something I'll get.
I don't feel as bad then. Okay.
I'll get that fixed, you guys, and I apologize because I know Ross was working his tail off to give me that access, and I apologize. I'll get that fixed. Okay. All right, so back to what we're proud of, being a partner in our community. And what I mean by that is the district has facilities all over the entire city and in the entire region in our service to La Pine, Sun River, and Bend. And last year alone, we had 11,000 hours of hosting different community events in our facilities, whether that's gymnasiums, auditoriums, stages and choir, concert areas, fields of competition, you name it, we're a great partner in that area, and we recognize the importance of that. And if you could see my screen right now, I would put up a promise that this is why it works. We have a promise that has lived in, anchored in board policy for some time now, and that is very simply this: every student in Ben La Pine schools should be known by name, by strength, and by their needs. And we want them to graduate ready and prepared for college, career, and any kind of engagement civically that they would be minded for. And that drives the work and drives what we plan for in our district. And so let me switch now into what are we currently working on? And it's going to be focused on the board goals that we're focused on right now. The first one is that students develop a strong academic foundation. That academic foundation is embedded in the fact that we focus so tremendously on early literacy, making sure that students can read effectively at a very young age. We start tracking and measuring that almost immediately as our students get into the system. And by the time that they are leaving third grade, we know the data supports that those are reading on grade level have a much more likelihood of successfully graduating from high school. The second thing that we're focusing on in this area is this deep focus on academic challenging learning experiences, rather than this. You might have heard of the curriculum being an inch wide and an inch deep and a mile wide, where we're teaching a little bit about everything. We're really challenging our students to have deep learning experiences in which they can experience lots of conversation and critical thinking around specific topics. The second one is students having a passion and a plan to prepare for their future. This is the biggest change for this one, is that this focus for getting that passion and plan and purpose in place is going to no longer be something we start when students get into high school, or in my case, it was right before my junior year started and the counselor asking me, "Are you going to college?" Nowadays, this conversation starts as young as kindergarten and first grade, and starting to get kids to know and understand what their connections are to the curriculum, what it is to their passions. It's one of the reasons we want that comprehensive school experience, so they can find out what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. But starting that early on and then mapping that plan so that students have a feel for, once they enter high school, they can start to know and understand what they might be good at and what they might actually find as a place for a vocation later in life. Third thing that we're working on is this sense of obligation for students and families to experience wellness, inclusion, and belonging. And that starts with just creating safe environments in our schools. You can't feel like you're welcome unless you feel safe. You can't feel like you're welcomed, or you can't feel like you belong there unless you feel welcomed. And creating this kind of this idea that Maslow's hierarchy of needs starts with the very first thing is that I can walk into my school and feel like I'm in a community that accepts me for who I am and helps me feel like I'm a member of that community. And as you can imagine, that means we're doing a lot of work on inclusive practices and creating a sense of belonging and empathy across many of our students. And so a lot of focus with that work. So now we switch gears just a little bit, and why that all matters, because that's the goal. Those are the types of goals that we want to put in front of all of our students. And to do that means that we need great facilities, and great facilities enhance great teaching and learning. And this community has been a tremendous partner with the school district, with lots and lots of history of great support for previous bonds and lots of investment and good stewardship of the facilities that the district already has in place. We have a sites and facilities committee that has been in place for many, many years that helps to determine what are the needs of the district and help us with focused work on getting this 20-year long-term plan in place. This work or the presentation I'm about to tell you about, the construction recommendations I'm about to tell you about, it came directly from our sites and facilities group, which consists of both staff members and of community members who contributed to that. And so let's switch gears to talk about that just a little bit. And this is, I think, the meat of what I want you to know, besides just the state of our schools, what's getting ready to happen. We're going out for a bond in a few weeks to ask the voters to support the ask for investing in our schools. And let me just start by saying with that, there were about 400 total projects that were on the list that Sites and Facilities put together. That group prioritized it down to a list of 89 separate projects. All of those projects are listed on our webpage and the estimated cost for each one of those projects. Important caveats for this. And I've got 4 really strong talking points about it. The first one, every single school in the district is going to benefit from these projects. Let's start with number 1, the highest priority project is our safety and security improvement upgrades across the entire district. We have focused for many bonds on being a safe and secure school district, but safety and security is an upgradable project. And that's one of the things we're asking for with this bond. And that is to do really 2 pretty significant upgrades. And that is to increase the fire safety systems across buildings throughout the district, and also door locking mechanisms. All of our school classroom doors right now lock and are typically locked when school is in session, but having an upgrade in the type of hardware that we use, as you can imagine, we have a lot of school classroom doors in our 33 schools and 2 charter schools. So anytime we have something that costs $1,000 or $2,000 across to install this new systems, when you do the math on that across the entire district, that's a large investment. The second major topic of this construction bond is the maintenance and preservation of the district and community's assets. We have 3 million square feet of school facilities. That's estimated to be $1.6 to $1.7 billion worth of buildings and assets and like furniture, et cetera. And we have an obligation and a fiscal responsibility to make sure that those are not losing value. And so some of this work is just simply like maintenance of HVAC systems and maintaining roofs of our facilities. And those projects are listed on that webpage. There's 13 projects just in the 4 schools in La Pine proper listed on that project, or listed on that webpage of the projects that would be focused on. The third one is modernizing instructional spaces across the district. Several schools are getting modernized classroom spaces, including Juniper and Buckingham and Skyview, just to get them more up to date with facility expectations and standards. The large one, if you have heard a little bit about this, James mentioned that it's not widely known, but the other one that is really big is the modernization of Bend Senior High School at its current location. And the Maxwell Center was done in the 2017 bond, and right about the time that was being conceived an idea, there was a master project planning done for what would it look like. The community made it clear that Bend High needs to stay in that location. That's a prime location for a high school, kind of midtownish, and in that area, what would it look like to build a plan to build out that school without making students not be able to go to high school there. And so that master plan was developed. The Maxwell Center was the first kind of phase of that plan. And now we're talking about the next phases of the plan to modernize and build out the rest of Bend High and get rid of the parts of that facilities that are over 70 years old and get those updated to modern systems. Just the modern systems would save thousands of dollars just in operating costs alone because of the amount of inefficiencies we have in old boilers and steam heaters and that kind of thing. And so that's the lion's share of the financial ask on this particular bond. Now here's the good news. We can do this because of appropriate planning and the retirement of existing bonds that'll coincide with this particular ask. We can do this with no expected increase in our current tax rate. And so timing wise, we're hitting this right on the money. Second thing that is a good piece of news is that if this bond passes by our voters, the state will match $8 million worth of grants worth of dollars that are just going to be ours that we would not otherwise be able to avail ourselves of. And those $8 million would be immediately put into helping us knock out those 89 different projects that are earmarked. Third thing that's a good point of news is that as we did with the last bond in 2017, there is a conscious effort to sustain jobs in our local community. We partner a lot with local providers, local contractors, and local developers to make sure those jobs and that work stays here in the community, which is a driver for economic development for our entire community. And so we see this as an investment in our community overall, in jobs, and making a better kind of future for our students. And the way that this would be financed, it would also allow for, as the community grows, that new people that come into our community would help be shouldering the tax burden of this thing. Okay, that's generally it for the informational piece. I can't ask you to vote yes, because I'm the superintendent. All I can do is tell you about why we're here in front of you. But Melissa, as a member of our PAC, can take this conversation a little farther than I can.
Yeah. So thank you, Steve. I think one of the great things, and I don't think that he can also brag about our team, but Bend Lapine is really, I work with a lot of districts. That is my day job as well. And our fiscal arm is so strong. And the fact that they were able to retire bonds early so that we could bring this forward is huge, with no increase to taxes. So what I'm really hoping for is Bend High to be a jewel in Bend and in your neighborhoods, and be able to, not just have our new schools like Caldera be the learning centers that they need to be, but really have more of Bend High looking like the Maxwell Center, which really reflects how kids are learning today. So I am actually here to say, please, please, please vote yes on measure in 155. I have put in the link to all of the information in the chat window. I am looking for volunteers. I am sharing the PAC because I love kids. I think kids deserve great buildings, and I'm always looking for volunteers. I have bumper stickers. I have buttons. I will have yard signs later this week. I am looking for people that would be interested in canvassing. I was looking for people who have or know of great locations that might be willing to put a yes for schools sign in their yards. But really, for me, this bond is coming forward. It keeps the tax rate exactly the same as it is. No increase in taxes, necessary improvements, safety, Bend High, keeps, our contractors, even though we have to go through the bidding process, our contractors are consistently local companies, so it does sustain jobs. And so this just feels like a no-brainer to me. And if there's anybody that's interested, I'm going to put my personal email in here as well. If you would like to reach out, and I can, again, I'm looking for volunteers. I'm looking for people that want signs and bumper stickers and getting the word out. And I just hope you'll really consider supporting this and supporting all of the high school students in your neighborhood association that attend or will attend Bend High.
So we have a question in the chat. What percentage of yes votes are needed to pass?
50% plus one vote.
And then I have a question, since I haven't read the documentation. How much is this bond?
Just a hair under $250 million.
Can you outline how the work at Bend High would be done without disrupting the students, and for how long that work would be expected to progress?
Yeah, we expect it to take a couple of years overall, because we'd have to phase that in. The first thing would be the building on site. That would be the essential, the part that's going to be the new part of the school would be built over on the kind of the, let's see, the southeast side. And that would be done, and that would be the focal point of the work. And for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years, once the construction starts. And then once some of that's available, then we'd be moving kids into that space to start doing the deconstruction work, and then partitioning that off so that, and while you're building those connections to the existing parts of the facility, that would be in connection with that. So it's a phased project. It would definitely take some engineering and some know-how, but it's one of the reasons it takes a little longer, and it's a little more expensive to do it this way than it is to just have a plot of land, 40 acres, where you're going to go put a high school on, like we did with Caldera.
And if the bond passes, when would you break ground, and when would be the target date for completion?
We still have some design work that we would want to get feedback on from the community. So while the projects, the safety and the facility maintenance kinds of things would start immediately as soon as the bond were to have passed, the groundbreaking is probably a good 15 to 18 months minimum, because we've got a lot of design, and we haven't gone forward yet with plans or anything yet with architects to get that design work done first.
So that's a couple of years out, is what you're really saying.
Yes, for sure.
As
Melanie,
a
do you have a
High,
question?
yeah, well, I'm just going to say, as a Bend High grad, I also urge a yes vote. It doesn't raise your taxes, which is keeping things the same. And I just checked, if you didn't know, the voter's pamphlet statement is actually available electronically on the Deschutes clerk's website right now. And there are 7 statements in support of this and none in opposition. So just wanted to share that as well. I think it's a good thing.
Dr. Cook, I would really appreciate, and just due to the technical issues that we had with this, is there a way that you could do this presentation again, say tomorrow, with your screen showing all the PowerPoint, and then we could put that on our social media channels or YouTube, just so we can all see that presentation?
I'll tell you what I can do. I've got 2 options, James. The first one is, if you can shoot me your email in the chat, I can send a PDF version of this presentation that is a much smaller, much tidier. It's not a full-on PowerPoint. I can send that to you electronically. The second thing that I can do is I can see if we can get this package. The issue I have right now is maybe I just do it, just record it, and then figure out a way to get it to you, because my calendar's pretty booked right now, doing these presentations all over the community as best we can. And so I think what I could do pretty quickly is get it recorded and then get it sent to you all as well.
That's a possibility, but that way we could share it on our social media and our website and our newsletter in the next week.
YouTube would be the best option for that. I just want to throw that out there. If you have on your YouTube channel.
Anne, you have a question?
I do. I think this all sounds wonderful. My question is, should it not pass, then what is the plan for doing some of this maintenance and some of the other things that you said are, critical to get our schools up to speed? What would we do? What would you do if it does not pass?
Yeah, that's the right question to ask, Ann. I think the first thing I would tell you is we would regroup. Let me qualify a couple of things. We have safe schools. Like, let's not get panicked that our schools are unsafe. We have very safe schools, but we would like to have very, very safe schools. And so part of what we would do is start to figure out what's next. We would have another shot to go to our board and ask for an opportunity to go back out again, and still catch the benefit of the retirement of these existing bonds coming off. It's not my decision. Our board would have to vote on that, but it would probably be my recommendation that we package this in another way and see if we can come back at it and attack it a little differently, and figure out how that might happen. Maybe it's a better messaging campaign. I don't know, but the likelihood of if it doesn't pass this time, coming back with a new attack and a new plan, and maybe trying to get something back on the ballot late spring, and trying to take advantage of this window of the taxes coming off, or the bonds coming off, and hitting that timing. The timing is really important for us on this one, and I think it, at least logically and financially, makes sense to take advantage of that opportunity. Once that passes, it's a different conversation. It's much more challenging.
Okay, thank you.
Is this bond similar to city general obligation bonds, where it's infrastructure only and not for maintenance, or not for operations? Or does it cover operations as well?
Yeah, no, with us, and one of the things we run into is clarifying that there's a big difference in one-time funds and how those one-time funds get spent, and the bonds are one-time funds. We would be getting access to $249 million that we get to spend one time, whereas about 85% of what we spend money on are people, and those are costs that are ongoing. And so those operating costs are costs that exist annually. And so we would not be interested in putting ongoing expenses into a fund like this.
Anyone else have questions? Sarah.
I was going to change topics just a little bit. Is that okay? Are we ready for that, James?
I'm pretty sure Dr. Cook would love to change topics, as long as it's regarding the school district or schools.
Okay, well, first I'll say thank you for presenting on the bond. That sounds amazing. I'm glad to learn about it. Sounds like a no-brainer. I totally agree. And also just to thank you for all your work. I'm a proud parent of a Caldera student. Yeah, I know, right? Sweet. And one of the things that just, working in our neighborhood, or we've been focusing on, is this gas station going in on the corner here at Broster House and Murphy. And I was out there with some of my friends, including Susie on here the other day, just looking at traffic and counting cars for our traffic engineer. And one of the things we noticed was how tricky it is for kids to get through that roundabout and get to Jewel Elementary. And similarly, kids getting down to Caldera on bikes and by foot. So we're just thinking, we're brainstorming on how to communicate this with the city and all of that. But my question to you is, do you have any suggestions for us on how we can, we're just thinking about our kids, but how can we work with the school district about making this safer? And, our view is not put in vehicle intensive uses on that corner to add more traffic and in and out and craziness there for our kids. Do you have any suggestions for us?
I have talked more about the Broster House going south to Caldera and going north to Jewel in the last 2-3 months than I have in the entire time I've been here. And I think
I thought it was just me.
No.
Okay.
When the city finally said, okay, we're just because, and I don't know the because, but maybe Melanie can opine on this, but what's the school district's responsibility? What's the city's responsibility? What's the neighborhood's responsibility? What's the owner developer of the Pines responsibility? There's just so many ways that we can try to make safe routes to school an important consideration, whether that's crossing it there at the roundabout, or that's safe pathway under the railroad bridge to Caldera. we were partnered with the city, if you will, to try to help alleviate that concern. And I think what I'd tell you going forward is focusing on what's the responsibility for safe routes. How do we make sure that safe routes are the key to what we're doing? Because it gets really challenging when there are multiple entities and how all these entities come together to provide which is the outcome that parents in that neighborhood want, which is, I want to trust that my kid can get to their school without getting ran over by somebody going 45 miles an hour. And so those are the conversations we're having. And there's a little bit of where's the district's jurisdiction or kind of control stop, and where does the city start, or is county or zoning, you name it. I mean, when you think about the fact that there could potentially be a gas station there, what complications does that bring? And how then do we focus on our partnerships to make sure that we're delivering on all of those promises that we really want to have there?
Yeah. Well, I know Susie wants to talk too. I was just going to have a follow-on question, which is there a way, like, we're representing the neighborhood. How do we have that dialogue with the school district about that, just so that we can support that message or help articulate that message? Because we've been working on this for a year already too. I just want you to know we are really organized about this. Everyone on this call knows that. So we're just wanting to partner, I guess, in a better way and make sure we're working together and we really understand, but we don't know who to talk to or in the school district.
Well, so you're talking to one of the people you need to talk to.
Okay.
Brad Henry, our operations guy and finance guy, is another person. He oversees transportation, which is a little complicated because so financially, here's the district's position. This will be really challenging for me I'll do my best. Last year, we actually had safety busing that went into the Pines because it's within the distance of getting in the walking distance. That was a burden that the district chose to put on to ensure that students were having safe access to schools. And that was once the city said, okay, we've made everything safe now to standard, then the district's, I guess, financial responsibility of providing those that access to the buses in that location or in that general vicinity is no longer required or needed, and it's just additional cost. And so we were having a bus driver shortage, and so that continues to be a challenge for us. And so those locations don't fit within the transportation zone for either Jewel or for Caldera. And so if we're talking about sidewalks or snow clearing or I forget the little flashy light crossing things that everybody sees, those are all municipal decisions. Or if it's, snow on the side of like the driveway, then that's the owner of the Pines. That's not us as well. And so our goal is to try to get kids into those spaces. And so we're glad to come talk with folks, but we're also know the edge of where our authority is. And so having that partnership and having those kind of conversations. And, we had at one point, Kinsey Martin, our director of DEI, had reached out to Zavi to talk with, he works in the PIO department at the city. And those conversations were actually showed some productivity. Now, how she got involved is she's not the right person to be dealing with that. But some people had relationship with her and said, "Can you help us? We're just trying to navigate this." And so that's how she got involved. But continuing those conversations with us, we're glad to step up and at least say this is as far as we can go on the next steps.
Very helpful.
Sarah, I'd also suggest. I just put in our school board email, but I have an email that I'm working on getting responses for. I know Melanie got it as well. It was a letter to both school board and city council from about 40 families that live in the Pines with a list of different concerns that they had. We read them, we listen. And another opportunity is always making public comment. We do save 10 minutes for non-agendized things, so it doesn't have to be on the agenda. If you want to come and make public comment at any time about safe routes to schools, we're always there.
Wonderful.
Susie, before I know Melanie wants to tag team with Dr. Cook. So let's
Yeah.
go Melanie and then Susie.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have mentioned this in the top. It just left my mind. So we got that same letter that Melissa referenced from the families there on Broster House, and we had reopened the road. So this all stems to putting the pedestrian underpass, the stuff on Broster House, the pedestrian underpass under the railroad overcrossing there, where it gets really narrow. There's no sidewalk. There's no bike lane. We were set to do that last year. We have to have a flagger from the railroad. They have to find a person that's their flagger and have them available. When all the fires happened last year, all their employees were off working on that. And they said, sorry, like, see you next year. So it's been delayed a year, which obviously those parents are very upset about. They want that there. And so we had reopened it with like a light and some cones protecting a walking space on the other lane. And so myself, Councilor Broadman, and Councilor Campbell and our staff sat down with those families like last Friday at Caldera and heard them out and said yes. And our solution was, we're just going to close it early. We're going to be starting construction at the end of October if there's not another BNSF problem, and getting that undercrossing there, which is going to actually increase that safety to get to Caldera. But it was too dangerous the way it was set up. There was like a flashing a light that was green for one way than the other. People weren't obeying it. Kids were running to catch the bus and hurting themselves. So it was not safe. And so that's why we've closed it. I will say we moved very quickly to do that. And part of that was making sure the school board or the school district knew and could reroute their buses. And they were very cooperative because we wanted to do it as fast as possible. So we worked together on that. And I think, as Dr. Cook mentioned, it's important to remember like who is in charge of the roads and then who is in charge of the buses, because this was a conversation we had with the parents because they had all these questions. Why isn't there a bus anymore? Or why do they have to walk to Caldera to get a bus to High Desert? And, as a city, we can't answer that. That's a school board responsibility or policy. So there's a lot of coordination that needs to be happening. And I think it is happening between our staff, especially to make sure information is getting to folks and then they understand who do they need to advocate for if they want that bus again, and who do they need to advocate for the sidewalk, right? It's different people. But we are trying to be responsive to those concerns because that has been a problem for a long time. And I was really excited last year that we were going to fix it, and really disappointed that we kind of had something that was out of our hands that prevented us from doing so. But it should be done this year from the track that we're on right now. And that will be really helpful, I think, for that neighborhood, of course. So that is that, which is completely separate from the Murphy Corner gas station, which is a totally different thing. But I just wanted to give some background on that we had that meeting with those folks and made sure to hear them out and address their concerns.
Susie, before you ask your follow-up with this, it is 7:30, and I just want to give any other audience member, if they have a question about the school bond for the Lapine school system, Bend Lapine school system, I want to prioritize any of those questions right now. If we don't have that, then Susie, I'm going to let you ask your question follow up. We do not have any more bond questions, so that's a positive. I do ask Dr. Cook and Melissa to please stay on for a few moments if you have the time and answer some of these transportation, safe routes to school questions because there are a lot of concerned parents. Susie.
Hi. So it's nice to meet you, and I'm excited about that bond. You've got my vote. Anything that makes the schools better and safer and easier for students to learn is a good thing. I too was out at the roundabout, but on a different day, I went down to where the crosswalk is on Murphy Road into Jewel. And I see that there is, one hand does not hold the other when it comes to this type of stuff in terms of school safety. But I'm also noticing that it almost seems self-selecting, that there are unsafe routes, so people don't feel that they are safe to allow their kids to walk or bike to school. And that does, it seems, lead to an increased amount of traffic down that corridor. So I don't know if Brad Henry is the person we should be speaking with or whatnot. I mean, we do have a major concern about that gas station and a drive-through restaurant going in right there where Jewel comes in and lets out. And that left turn area was, I don't know how the parents had the patience to sit in that line to make that left turn, because it's not a dedicated left turn onto Murphy from where Jewel lets out. But in terms of safety, it seems to me that it would benefit all of us if there was some way we could work together in terms of making that safer. I know that at Wilson and 9th, they put in those green biking lanes. They made a wider dedication for pedestrians, and they made clearer views. I'm not sure that the views are going to be any clearer at the Murphy Broster House roundabout. I do know a couple of those turns, you can't see pedestrians or bikers until you're actually in that turn. And the speed at which cars are turning it's remarkable. I don't get it. But there were several almost accidents in just that short time that we were out there. So I don't know if there's like a working committee that we can work with. We certainly want to see more biking and more walking in this neighborhood, as it seems like that's what the city wants, and it would benefit, I think, the schools. I think it's good for kids to get exercise to and from school, if that's at all possible. And then the other thing is, we saw the walking bus that the Pines now has. So hopefully, I'm not sure that that's going to be any better with the tunnel under the bridge. I think it's still an unsafe environment to let kids that age walk. And I think a lot of those parents need to work. So it just seems like a little bit of a mess.
Can I add something to that really quick? Diane in the chat has asked about the school zones. And I don't know if this is a Ben Lapine school question or a Councilor Keebler question. If we have to go to ODOT to get our speed limits changed, are the school zones on roads controlled by ODOT as well? Or is that controlled by either the city or the schools?
You know, I don't know the answer to that.
I know it's not us.
Yeah, no, it's not the school board. And I don't know the answer to how they select when lights are flashing and how they select the ones that just have a sign. My guess, Diane, from your question, is the lights flash during school hours, right? So it's just a different way of
I've never
doing
seen
it.
any lights flashing at that area, ever.
No, I have. Yeah.
You have?
So, but I can find out.
I live right there, and
Yeah.
it's very brief. It's when lights are flashing. I guess I don't know. It's actually just the crossing hours for, I don't know, a short time, I guess.
I'll find out. Yeah, because I know the other ones, like Bear Creek, it says, from this hour to this hour, right?
I've never seen that anywhere. They do that instead of having a regular school zone like they do over, for example, on Brookswood.
Yeah, it's just another way of letting people know that they're entering that area. I mean, I'll say over by Bear Creek, like most people don't slow down. They just go, they don't go 20.
I know,
right?
yeah.
So, and I've heard from the folks in the Pines that crossing at Murphy, I guess Dr. Cook, you probably don't know. I know a lot of the schools have like a little person with a flag in the morning. I don't know if Jewel has that or not, but that at that roundabout, yeah,
They do. They do.
That's what I suspected. Yeah, so that can be helpful. But yeah, I think to the point, I'll just say this: when the Murphy corridor was designed and approved, we had a different council, and this council is very much interested in safe routes to schools and some of that increased infrastructure that you talked about, Susie. So I think at least connecting the sidewalk is step one, and we need to keep moving on from there.
And then I just had one more issue on I guess that's the southeast side of Broster House in front of Crown Villa. There is no sidewalk. And from the research we've done, it looks like they have a grant not to have a sidewalk, which then creates people crossing the street more than once. So they have to cross from the other side of Broster House, across Broster House, then across Murphy, instead of just going down Broster House and crossing on Murphy. So I don't know if that would help anything. I certainly sort of feel like if we increase the school zone area, that may help. It seems
that might be a state law about how big the school zone is. I'll ask about that. So I'll ask about the school zone size and the flashers. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, that was a bit of a positive discussion. not involving the bond, but involving schools and children's safety. So I'm pretty sure everybody's okay having that conversation. Very briefly, I just want to make one more comment about the old farm. We do, in a few weeks, we have our last street cleanup that we've been doing every month for the last 6 months. They've been very successful. We're going to be advertising that this last one again on social media. Just want to get that in there. At this point, we are done with old farm business, and I am going to ask the school
James?
system. Yeah,
I just want to clarify that the date for that cleanup will be Saturday the 22nd specifically. So if you or anyone, a neighbor, are available, we're targeting 9 a.m. on Saturday the 22nd, and we'll recruit, and then from there we'll distribute the information regarding the wheres and the whens and the hows to that group. So
Brian is
love
our
to have you.
coordinator. Okay, October 22nd, Brian is our coordinator, street cleanup. If anybody needs to click off, now you can, but I will ask if Stephen and Melissa and Melanie can stay on for just 1 or 2 minutes if anybody has any other questions regarding school system, because this is a rare opportunity and I'd like to get the most out of your guys' brains. So any questions for people? Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Just kind of going back to school safety. I've got a Bend High School freshman, and we have to traverse, or will have to traverse 9th and Wilson. Okay, that roundabout is going to go in approximately starting in March. And I've spoken with the city about the issue of a bicyclist, pedestrian, student getting across that intersection when it's torn out for the roundabout. And they don't have an answer. And they're like, we'll need to look into that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention for your discussions. If you have those with the folks who are designing that roundabout and working on the timing, there currently isn't an acceptable way for a student to get across that intersection. It's only 60 feet, but it's a 60 feet that keeps kids away from, will have to be driven. I just wanted to make that aware, because the city doesn't have an answer for how kids can traverse that corridor when that construction is going on.
You mean 15th and Wilson, Brian?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. 15th and Wilson. I apologize.
Yeah, no. So what they did at 9th and Wilson is they actually paved an asphalt path like around the corners. We have to do that. We have to provide an alternate way for people to go, walking, biking, whatever. So I don't know why they told you they didn't have an answer. There will be something. And if there isn't, we'll make sure there is, because people were very, very happy to have that way to go from 9th to Wilson on that corner with the asphalt path and not just have to navigate some sketchy places with cones. And I don't see why we can't do that there as well.
That's great to hear. They surprised me, because they researched it and came back and said they don't know if they'll have to figure it out.
It's a bit of a tricky, 15th and Wilson is trickier. It's got that big hill. It's got a house right on the corner, right?
Yeah.
So I think, BPRD might be helpful with their corner or whatever we need to do to get something there, because like it might even feel better when it's under construction, as long as we have like an asphalt path to get through there, because right now it's really sketched to get through there.
Yeah, that's a tough intersection on the best of days.
Anne, did you have a question?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Is there a targeted time for the start of the construction of that roundabout? Melanie, or?
Soon, I will find out for you.
And my understanding is that it's spring, probably March.
Yeah.
No,
I think they want to finish that, what they're working on right now, that's almost done, the paving in the middle there. I think they're trying to finish that up between 9th and 15th and then move on, but I'll get you a date.
Okay.
And Anne, we have been putting the Wilson Street updates in our monthly newsletter.
Well, I spoke to one of the construction folks, and he gave me the impression that it was going to be sooner, like November, like they want to roll right into it. So I didn't know if that was any official word on that.
Might depend on the weather too, but I'll ask and see if there's any updates. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So Dr. Cook, I've got your presentation. If you want us to, if you have a better idea for how you want us to get it out to everybody, have somebody reach out to us in the next day or so, and we will broadcast that out on our social media and resend it out on to our email newsletter. Any other questions for the school district, since we have them and they're busy? He's got hundreds of these meetings over the next month, so.
We're
No
cramming
more
them in right now,
questions?
James.
Huh?
We're cramming them in right now, so I appreciate it. Yeah, please feel free to share that. And there's a great video that was taken in 2017 in there that shows two intersecting hallways at Bend High. I'm sure Melanie can remember that. Just not navigating passing period in that building is an adventure, and just the difference in what it would look like now. If you've been at Caldera, you would see, and you know the difference. It's just a night and day.
Well, Stephen, considering most students cram before every test, I expect no less from the administrators trying to get their bond done as well. Melanie, do you have anything else as a city councilor to tell us? Then I am going to say that this is the official end of the meeting. We will stop recording. If anyone else wants to stay on and chat or talk or have questions for the board, we will stay on for a moment and try to address all of that. But I know time is precious for people. So Jen or Ross, please stop live streaming. I think we're still live streaming.
Ross is in control.
Is he though? Is he really in control?
I don't know. Is he back? Hold on. Let me see if I can do things. Thank you all for your time tonight, Steve and Melissa. Really appreciate it.
Steve, I have a question for you. I don't care if it gets cut off by the live stream or not.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll wait a second. Are we still recording?
Yeah, I'm not driving this ship.
Well, I'm going to ask, and
Sorry, guys.
Steve, Ross, you can stop the live streaming.
Will do.
All right.